Chapter 4. Bertie's First Transaction in Stocks. "Great heavens!" exclaimed Mr. Morse. "What a narrow escape!" And now Bertie began to realize what a risk he had faced in catching the satchel of liquid death. Not many nights before he had attended one of the lectures given in a public schoolhouse, the subject of which was high explosives. The composition of nitroglycerin had been fully explained as a compound produced by the action of a mixture of strong nitric and sulfuric acids on glycerin at a low temperature, which detonates when struck and explodes with great violence. If that can of compound had hit the wall, as the lunatic intended it should, there probably wouldn't have been enough left to those standing in the reception room at the moment to have been swept up. It would have wrecked the whole office, killed or fatally injured most of the clerks, and generally damaged the building. And all this had been happily averted by Bertie's prompt action in catching the bag. "Bertie Ballister," said the banker, wiping the moisture from his forehead, "you are a young hero. I never can sufficiently thank you for saving my life. In fact, the whole place would have gone to smash, and the newspapers have had a fresh sensation but for your wonderful nerve. Bertie, I am your friend for life." A policeman entered the office at that moment, and the affair was explained to him. "The man was surely crazy. Is he dead?" he said. "No, only stunned," replied the banker. "I struck him down with a chair." The officer went to the telephone and sent a message to the nearest hospital for an ambulance. Then the banker took him to his office and showed him the can of explosives standing in the ripped-open satchel. His hair almost stood on end. "Good gracious! You people escaped by the skin of your teeth," he said. "We owe our lives to my young messenger," said Mr. Morse. "He deserves a medal," answered the officer. "He shall get something more substantial than a medal," replied the banker earnestly. "He's earned it all right," nodded the policeman. "I shall have to ask you to remove that stuff to the station," said the banker. The officer eyed the can of explosive stuff askance. "I suppose I'll have to take it," he said, "but I don't fancy the job. It won't make any trouble unless you should drop it." "Don't worry, I won't drop it. I'm in no hurry to take on a pair of wings. That crowd outside is filling the street. It should be dispersed. Wait till I show this stuff to them and they'll scatter fast enough," said the policeman grimly, as he carefully picked up the can of nitroglycerin in one hand and took the demoralized bag in the other. "You just watch them scamper." The crowd, in its eagerness to find out what was going on in the bank, had now gathered thickly about the window and the door. A clerk opened the door for the officer to pass out. He found his progress completely blocked. "Stand back. I have a can of nitroglycerin in my hand. If you jar me, something is liable to happen." He held the can up so all in front could see its label. That was quite enough for the curiously disposed. The mob broke up in a panic, leaving the way clear for the officer to pass out. He walked down Wall Street toward Old Slip Station as if he was treading on eggs, so fearful was he of the contents of that can. Shortly afterward an ambulance came and took the unconscious lunatic away. He was subsequently removed to the Bellevue Insane Ward and later on transferred to the island. There was little actual work done at the bank for the rest of the day, for the clerks were all broke up. Before Mr. Morse went home, he presented Bertie with $1,000 in bills as a token of his grateful appreciation of the boy's gallant conduct. A reporter of a morning daily heard about the incident in time to catch Bertie and question him about the thrilling event. Then he interviewed everybody else in the establishment from the cashier down. Afterward, he went up to Mr. Morse's house and got his version of the affair. With this material, and the scareheads tacked on after his story was put into type, he managed to fill a column of space in the morning edition. The result was, Bertie woke up the next day to find he had become famous, in a way, overnight. He was the talk of the financial district before 10 o'clock, and many brokers who knew him either personally or by sight stopped him on the street to question and compliment him about the nervy front he had put up against the crank who had visited Morse's bank, loaded for business. It was something of an advertisement for Mr. Morse, and he obtained several new depositors before the week was over. Bertie's mother was shocked at the risk her dear boy had encountered, but he made light of it, laughingly observing that a miss was as good as a mile. He decided with some twinges of conscience not to tell his mother that he had received $1,000 from his employer in connection with the affair. He had already decided what he was going to do with the money, and as he had very strong doubts about her falling in with the plan, he kept his own counsel. He believed he had a good thing in view, and he wanted to surprise her with his success when he came out ahead of the game. After he reached the bank and seated himself in the reception room as usual, he hunted up M&C Traction in the quotations of the previous day's operations on the stock exchange, and saw that the stock had advanced from 70 to 72. "Looks like a sure winner, all right," he mused. "That tip I've got ought to pan out well. It's funny how the unexpected sometimes happens. Yesterday, if anybody had told me I was going to come into $1,000 before night, I should have felt like laughing in his face. And yet, that is exactly what did happen. Though I wouldn't go through the same experience again for a million. It was touch and go with all of us when I caught that satchel on the fly. I call that the finest fly catch on record. If I were to believe all the papers say about me this morning, I'd develop a good case of the swelled head. Well, I'm able to buy 100 shares of M&C Traction on a 10% margin after all. If it goes up 10 points, I shall double my $1,000. Won't that be fine? I mean to make a barrel of money out of the stock market one of these days. I really believe I'm a born speculator. I seem to feel it in my blood. Well, let me see. 100 shares at 72 is $7,200. I'll have to put up 720. That'll leave me 280 to fall back upon. It's always well to keep an anchor to the windward, as the nautical gent said in the melodrama the other night. So when Bertie was sent on his first errand about 10 o'clock, he dropped in at the broker's office on Broadway, where he was known, and bought 100 shares of M&C Traction at 72, depositing $720 as security. "Now I've got a personal interest in the market," he said to himself as he marched back to the bank. "It really makes a fellow feel as if he was something more than a mere messenger boy to have $290 in savings bank, and a $720 flyer that may bring him in 1,000 or two. I guess I'm sprouting my pin feathers at last." He stopped a moment to talk to Beryl Foster, who had just taken her usual stand on the corner of Nassau Street. He had taken a strong interest in the charming little maid, and the pleasant way in which she acknowledged his salutation left little doubt that she was equally pleased to see him again. "I brought this bunch especially for you, Mr. Ballister," she said, picking a specially fine bouquet out of her basket. "You must let me pin it to your coat." "Come now, my name is Bertie," grinned the boy. "Time enough to call me Mr. Ballister when I have sprouted a mustache and put in my first vote." "Then you must call me Beryl," she said, with a bashful smile as she pinned the flowers to his jacket. "Sure I will. There's my nickel, Beryl." "Oh, but I don't want you to pay me for the violets," she protested earnestly. "It's against my principles to accept something for nothing," he said laughingly. "So just drop that into your little pocketbook. You see, I made $1,000 yesterday after I saw you, and I can afford to treat myself to an unlimited quantity of violets if I choose to do so." "Did you really make $1,000?" she asked a bit doubtfully, opening her eyes very wide. "That's what I did. My boss gave it to me for saving his life. I can't stop now to tell you about it, but here's the morning paper with a full account of the affair. Read it when you get a chance, and then you'll understand all about it. Goodbye till I see you again." And he was off, leaving the astonished young miss with a morning paper in one hand, the article in question staring her in the face under a heavy blue pencil mark. Before she started to read the story, she put Bertie's nickel away in a special compartment of her pocketbook. "I'm going to keep that because it's the first he has given me," she said to herself. "He is a nice boy, and I just like him ever so much." End of chapter 4.